When a man feels intimidated by a woman, he doesn't announce it. He doesn't sit her down and say, "You make me nervous." Instead, his behavior shifts, his energy changes, and most women miss it entirely because they're looking for the wrong signs. They're waiting for admiration, for pursuit, for clarity. But intimidation doesn't look like interest, and it doesn't look like disinterest either. It lives in a strange, contradictory space where a man is simultaneously drawn to you and retreating from you. And if you don't understand what's happening beneath the surface, you'll misread him completely. You'll think he's not interested when he's actually overwhelmed. You'll think he's playing games when he's actually protecting himself. Because here's the truth. A man who feels intimidated by a woman is a man who senses a power imbalance, and his entire strategy shifts to reclaim control or avoid exposure. Let's start with what intimidation actually is. It's not fear in the traditional sense. A man isn't intimidated by a woman because he's afraid she'll harm him physically. He's intimidated because she threatens something deeper. His sense of status, his confidence in his ability to impress her, or his control over the dynamic. Intimidation is the emotional response to perceived inadequacy. When a man looks at a woman and thinks, consciously or unconsciously, "She's out of my league," or "I don't know how to handle her," his nervous system registers a threat. And just like any threat, his instinct is to either fight, flee, or freeze. In the context of attraction, this translates into behaviors that most women completely misinterpret. The first sign is overcompensation. A man who feels intimidated will often try too hard to prove himself. He'll dominate the conversation, not because he's genuinely interested in sharing, but because silence feels like weakness. He'll name drop, talk about his accomplishments, or subtly compete with you in ways that feel unnecessary. You mention a project you're working on, and suddenly he's explaining how he did something similar but bigger, better, or more challenging. This isn't arrogance in the traditional sense. It's insecurity dressed up as confidence. He's not trying to impress you because he thinks he's better than you. He's trying to impress you because he's terrified you'll see him as less than you. And the irony is, the harder he tries, the more obvious his insecurity becomes. A truly confident man doesn't need to prove anything because he's secure in his value. But a man who's intimidated feels like he's constantly auditioning for your approval. Then there's the opposite reaction: withdrawal. Some men, when faced with a woman who intimidates them, don't overcompensate. They disappear. Not physically, but energetically. They become passive. They let you lead. They defer to you on every decision, not because they're being respectful, but because they don't want to risk being wrong in front of you. This man will agree with everything you say, laugh at all your jokes, and avoid any situation where he might have to challenge you or assert himself. At first, this might feel flattering. You might think, "Finally, a man who listens." But over time, you'll notice something's off. There's no tension, no push and pull, no masculine presence. He's not engaging with you as an equal. He's shrinking himself to avoid comparison. And the problem with this dynamic is that it kills attraction. You can't be drawn to someone who refuses to take up space. Respect requires presence, and a man who's too intimidated to show up fully will eventually bore you, frustrate you, or make you feel like you're carrying the entire relationship on your own. Another hidden sign is inconsistency. A man who's intimidated by you will hot and cold in ways that don't make sense. One day, he's texting you constantly, engaged, interested, making plans. The next day, he's distant, vague, almost cold. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing changed between those 2 days, but inside his mind, everything changed. Because when he's around you or thinking about you, two competing forces are at war. Part of him is attracted to you, drawn to your energy, your confidence, your presence. But another part of him feels inadequate, unsure if he can measure up, afraid of being rejected or exposed. So he oscillates. He moves toward you when his desire overrides his fear, and he pulls back when his fear overrides his desire. And because you're not inside his head, you experience this as confusion. You think he's playing games, or that he's not serious, or that you did something to push him away. But the truth is, he's not playing games with you. He's wrestling with himself. Now, here's where it gets interesting. A man's intimidation often shows up in how he tries to control the dynamic, because if he can't control his own emotions, he'll try to control yours. He'll test you. He'll say something slightly dismissive to see how you react. He'll subtly challenge your opinions, not because he disagrees, but because he's trying to find a crack in your confidence. If you're as self-assured as you appear, you won't flinch. But if you react defensively, if you try to justify yourself or seek his approval, he feels a momentary sense of relief. Okay, she's human. She has weaknesses. Maybe I can keep up with her after all. This is why some men will neg you, not out of malice, but out of insecurity. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to level the playing field. And if you don't recognize this behavior for what it is, you'll either take it personally or you'll start doubting yourself. Both responses give him the control he was seeking, even if he doesn't consciously realize that's what he's doing. If you're ready to stop guessing and start understanding the invisible rules that govern male behavior, subscribe now. Because in our next video, I'll reveal the single mistake women make that turns intimidation into rejection, and how to flip the script entirely. This is not relationship advice. This is strategic intelligence. And if you see the difference, you belong here. There's another layer to this that most women never consider. When a man is intimidated by you, he doesn't just change how he acts around you. He changes how he positions you in his mind. And this mental repositioning determines everything that comes next. See? A man who feels equal to a woman sees her as a potential partner. A man who feels superior to a woman sees her as an option. But a man who feels inferior to a woman, he sees her as a prize he doesn't deserve, or as a threat he needs to neutralize. And both of those perspectives poison the dynamic before it even begins. Because when you're a prize he doesn't deserve, he either puts you on a pedestal, which kills attraction, or he disqualifies himself entirely, which kills opportunity. And when you're a threat he needs to neutralize, he either becomes passive-aggressive, sabotaging the connection slowly, or he walks away to protect his ego. Neither outcome gives you what you actually want, which is a man who sees you clearly, respects you fully, and still chooses to step up. Let's talk about the pedestal problem first. When a man puts you on a pedestal, he's not honoring you. He's removing you from reality. You become an idealized version of yourself in his mind, someone so perfect that he can't relate to you as a human being. And this creates a strange dynamic where he's attracted to you, but terrified of disappointing you. He'll be overly careful with his words, overly cautious with his actions, and overly concerned with your approval. Every interaction feels like a performance review. He's not relaxed around you because he's convinced that one wrong move will shatter the illusion. And you'll see him for what he really is. Not good enough. The irony here is painful. You're not asking to be worshipped. You're not demanding perfection. But his intimidation has convinced him that anything less than flawless behavior will cost him your respect. So he hides his flaws, suppresses his personality, and presents a sanitized version of himself. And the result? You never get to know the real him, and he never gets to experience the relief of being accepted as he is. Now, the disqualification response is different but equally destructive. This is the man who decides, often unconsciously, that he's not in your league, so he doesn't even try. He'll keep things surface level. He won't pursue you seriously. He might flirt, he might enjoy your company, but he won't invest. Because in his mind, investing in you is setting himself up for inevitable failure. Why risk rejection from someone who's clearly too good for him? Why expose himself to the humiliation of trying and falling short? So he protects himself by staying distant. He keeps one foot out the door. And if you confront him about it, if you ask why he's not stepping up, he'll give you vague answers. I'm not ready for something serious. I'm focused on my career right now. I don't want to rush things. None of these are the real reason. The real reason is that he's already convinced himself he can't win, so he's not playing the game. And the tragedy is that you might actually be interested in him. You might see potential in him that he doesn't see in himself. But his intimidation has already decided the outcome. Then there's the passive-aggressive route, and this one is particularly insidious because it masquerades as support. A man who's intimidated by you but can't walk away will often undermine you in subtle ways. He'll make jokes about your success that feel just a little too sharp. He'll forget to celebrate your wins or downplay them when you share them. Oh, you got promoted? That's cool. Yeah, they've been handing those out a lot lately. He'll position himself as supportive, but his energy tells a different story. He's not genuinely happy for you. He's threatened by you, and every achievement you have, every bit of recognition you receive, every moment you shine, reminds him of the gap between where you are and where he is. So he diminishes you, not with overt cruelty, but with 1,000 small cuts. A dismissive comment here, a lack of enthusiasm there, a subtle shift in tone when you talk about something you're proud of. And if you call him out on it, he'll act confused. What are you talking about? I'm supportive. I'm proud of you. But you can feel it. The resentment, the competition, the quiet hope that you'll stumble just enough for him to feel like he's catching up. Here's what you need to understand about all of this. A man's intimidation is not about you. It's about him. It's about his relationship with his own value, his own competence, his own sense of self. You could be the warmest, most approachable woman in the world, and if he's insecure, he'll still feel intimidated. You could downplay your accomplishments, make yourself smaller, dim your light, and it won't change anything. Because the problem isn't that you're too much. The problem is that he feels like too little. And you cannot fix that for him. You cannot reassure him enough, validate him enough, or shrink yourself enough to make his insecurity disappear. That work is his to do. And until he does it, any relationship you attempt to build with him will be built on a shaky foundation of his unresolved inadequacy. But here's the part that most women struggle with. When you recognize that a man is intimidated by you, your instinct might be to make him feel more comfortable, to soften yourself, to lead less, to achieve less visibly, to be smaller, quieter, less threatening. And every time you do this, you betray yourself. You teach him that your fullness is a problem. You reinforce the idea that his comfort is more important than your authenticity. And you set a precedent that will haunt the relationship forever. Because once you start managing his insecurity, you never stop. It becomes your job to make sure he feels good about himself. And your own needs, your own growth, your own ambitions all take a back seat to his fragile ego. This is not partnership. This is caretaking, and it will exhaust you. The better question to ask yourself is not, how do I make him less intimidated? The better question is, why am I considering a man who can't handle me as I am? Because the right man, the man who's actually ready for you, won't be intimidated by your strength. He'll be intrigued by it. He won't see your success as a threat. He'll see it as a reflection of your character. He won't need you to dim your light to feel like he can shine. He'll want to build something with you, not compete with you or hide from you. So how do you actually tell the difference between a man who's temporarily intimidated but capable of rising to meet you, and a man who's fundamentally too insecure to ever handle you? Because this distinction matters. Some men feel initial intimidation but work through it. They recognize their discomfort, they challenge their own assumptions, and they choose to show up anyway. These men are worth your patience. But other men live in a perpetual state of inadequacy, and they'll drag you into that space with them if you let them. These men are not projects you should take on. The question is, how do you know which type you're dealing with before you've wasted months or years hoping he'll change? The answer is in how he responds to your presence over time. A man who's capable of growth will become more comfortable with you, not less. In the beginning, he might stumble over his words. He might be nervous. He might overcompensate or withdraw slightly. But as he spends more time with you, as he realizes you're not judging him as harshly as he's judging himself, he'll relax. He'll start showing you more of who he really is. He'll stop performing. He'll stop trying to prove himself. He'll ask you questions instead of just talking about himself. He'll admit when he doesn't know something instead of pretending. He'll let you see his vulnerabilities without collapsing into them. This is a man who's doing the internal work. He's wrestling with his insecurity, and he's winning. Slowly, maybe, but he's winning. And if you're patient with this process, if you don't penalize him for his initial nervousness, you might actually build something real with him. But a man who's stuck in his inadequacy, he doesn't get more comfortable. He gets more resentful. The longer he's around you, the more aware he becomes of everything he's not. And instead of using that awareness to motivate himself, he uses it to justify why the relationship won't work. He'll start finding faults in you. Not because you've changed, but because he needs a reason to explain his discomfort that doesn't make him the problem. So suddenly, you're too demanding. You're too independent. You're too focused on your career. You're too confident. All the things he was initially attracted to become the things he uses to disqualify you. And the cruelest part of this dynamic is that he'll make you feel like you're the reason the relationship is failing. He'll frame it as a compatibility issue when it's actually a courage issue. He's simply too afraid to be with someone who forces him to confront his own limitations. Now, there's a specific behavior that reveals a man's true capacity to handle you, and most women overlook it entirely. It's how he responds when you succeed at something significant. Not a small win, not a compliment from a stranger or a nice dinner. A real achievement, a promotion, a major accomplishment, public recognition, something that shifts your status in a visible way. When that moment comes, watch him closely. Not just his words, but his energy. Does he light up with genuine pride? Does he ask you questions about how you did it, what it means to you, what's next? Does he celebrate you without making it about himself? Or does he pause just a little too long before congratulating you? Does he change the subject quickly? Does he redirect the conversation to something he's doing? Does he suddenly become distant or moody in the days that follow? A secure man celebrates your wins because he understands that your success doesn't diminish him. An insecure man feels threatened by your wins because he believes there's only so much success to go around, and every bit you gain is a bit he loses. Here's the reality that no one wants to say out loud. Most men are not equipped to handle a woman who's operating at a high level. Not because they're bad men, not because they don't want to be supportive, but because they've been conditioned by a culture that still, despite all the progress, tells them that their value is tied to being the provider, the leader, the more successful one. And when they meet a woman who's already providing for herself, leading her own life, achieving her own success, their entire framework for understanding their role in her life collapses. They don't know how to be necessary to you. They don't know what they bring to the table that you don't already have. And instead of figuring that out, instead of redefining masculinity in a way that makes space for your power, they retreat. They choose women who need them more. Women who make them feel essential. Women who don't trigger their inadequacy. And you know what? Let them. Because the alternative, trying to convince a man that your strength is not a threat, that your independence is not a rejection, that your success is not a competition, is exhausting. It's a conversation you'll have to keep having. It's a reassurance you'll have to keep giving. And it will never be enough. Because the problem isn't intellectual. It's emotional. It's deep. It's woven into how he sees himself as a man. And you cannot love a man into believing he's enough. He has to do that work himself. But here's what you can do. You can stop apologizing for who you are. You can stop downplaying your achievements. You can stop making yourself smaller to make men feel bigger. Because every time you do that, you're selecting for the wrong type of man. You're selecting for men who need you to be less so they can feel like more. And those men will never truly value you. They'll value the version of you that doesn't threaten them. And that version is not real. It's a performance. And performances are exhausting to maintain. The man who's right for you won't be intimidated by your fullness. He'll be captivated by it. He won't feel like he needs to compete with you. He'll feel like he gets to build with you. He won't see your strength as something to manage or tolerate. He'll see it as something to match. And when you meet that man, you won't have to wonder if he's intimidated. You won't have to decode his behavior or guess at his feelings. Because he'll show up, clearly, consistently, without hesitation. Not because he's perfect, not because he never feels insecure, but because he's mature enough to know that his insecurity is his responsibility, not yours. And that's the only kind of man worth your time. So when you notice the signs, the overcompensation, the withdrawal, the inconsistency, the subtle undermining, don't ignore them. Don't explain them away. Don't convince yourself that you can fix him if you just try harder. See them for what they are. Information. Data about whether this man is capable of meeting you where you are. And if he's not, if his intimidation turns into resentment or avoidance or control, let him go. Not with anger, not with judgment, but with clarity. Because you're not too much. You never were. He's just not enough. Not for you. And that's okay. Someone else will be.